When most of us think of ancient Greece, images of the Grand Parthenon or the brave 300 Spartans at Thermopylae often come to mind. These are indeed important symbols, but they only scratch the surface of what this vibrant culture had to offer. It's a common mistake to believe that ancient Greece was one unified state. In fact, Greece was a collection of various independent city-states, each with its own customs and beliefs.
You know, the Parthenon wasn't just a temple, but also served as a kind of central bank for Athens, showing how advanced their society was in some ways. And take the Trojan War, for example. Did you realize it was as far back in history to Alexander the Great as the Viking era is to us today? There's so much more to uncover about ancient Greece, beyond the myths and legends most of us are familiar with. Let's challenge ourselves to explore these nuances and understand the true complexities of this fascinating period.
As we transition from the well-known stories of ancient Greece, let's delve into an earlier era that shaped its history, the Creto-Mycenaean era. Imagine a time when Crete was home to a flourishing and peaceful civilization. This society was known for its impressive three-storied palaces. It was a world where people admired nature, with flowers and even blue monkeys as part of daily life.
Yes, it's quite fascinating how these ancient Cretans lived. They seem to have preferred peace and beauty over conflict. But everything changed after the massive eruption on the island of Thera, now known as Santorini. This catastrophic event was so significant that it is believed to be the inspiration behind the legend of Atlantis. The eruption signaled the downfall of Crete's prosperity and opened the door for invaders.
The impacts of that volcanic eruption were felt far beyond Crete. Invaders soon rushed into the weakened island. These newcomers introduced a different way of life, armed with bronze weapons and speaking a new tongue that eventually evolved into early Greek. This led to the rise of significant cities on the mainland, such as Mycenae and Pylos, each with massive defensive walls, a far cry from Crete's open and undefended cities.
Absolutely, and these cities were key players in the events that followed. They were not just centers of power, but also hubs of trade and culture. It's interesting to note how the Mycenaeans took parts of Cretan culture and made them their own. They were capable traders and grew wealthy, as seen in the treasures found in their tombs. If our listeners are curious to dive deeper, they can join our membership. This not only helps us, but also gets them access to our episode transcripts and more.
Continuing our journey through ancient Greek history, let's explore the so-called Dark Ages. After the decline of the Mycenaean civilization, there was a noticeable drop in literacy. This scarcity of written records has left us largely in the dark about what really happened during those 400 years. However, this is also the time when the stories of Homer emerged. Though the poet himself might be a mystery, his works like the Iliad and the Odyssey offer rare glimpses into everyday life back then.
That's true. Through Homer's characters, we see a world very different from the glory of Mycenae or Crete. Take Odysseus, for instance. His power came not from palaces or armies, but his wealth in goats and pigs. This was an era with more primitive living conditions. His father would sleep on the ground like any of the slaves. The Dorian invasion devastated advanced technologies, leaving only basics like sailing ships.
So, following our discussion on the earlier periods, let's shift our focus to the archaic period in ancient Greece. This is when we first start to see the rise of independent city-states, or polis, scattered across the Greek landscape. Unlike a centralized nation, Greece was a mosaic of these city-states, each with its own government and way of life. This unique structure was largely due to Greece's challenging geography, with its numerous mountains and separate islands making a unified state impractical. But this very fragmentation encouraged a vibrant exchange of ideas between the poli, fueling advancements in art and philosophy.
That's right, and it was during this time that Greek culture really began to spread far and wide. Their innovations were remarkable, especially in writing. They adapted the alphabet from their Phoenician neighbors, which made communication and record-keeping more accessible than ever before. This new form of writing wasn't reserved for just the elite either. It played a crucial role in the spreading of knowledge and culture, making Greek ideas influential across the Mediterranean. And let's not forget about the role of coinage in trade. As the Greeks established colonies, they began using coins, which simplified trade and allowed them to extend their economic influence to new areas.
Picking up from where we left off, let's talk about Athens and Sparta, two poles in ancient Greek culture. Sparta was quite unique. The Spartans came from the Dorian tribes and built a society fixated on military strength. They conquered Messenia and turned its people into helots, which were like a mix of slaves and farmers. This allowed the Spartans to focus solely on becoming fierce warriors. They lived their lives in barracks even during peace, all for the sake of military readiness.
Indeed, Sparta was a stark contrast to Athens. While Sparta focused on war, Athens was moving towards something different: democracy. Now, democracy didn't come easy. At first, Athens was ruled by tyrants, and the word tyrant might scare you. But back then, it simply meant someone who took power with the promise of reform. These rulers were often aristocrats who fell out with their own group. Over time, the need to please the people led to the fall of these tyrants and paved the way for democratic ideas.
That's right. What began as tyrannies gradually changed as the people and aristocrats found a middle ground. In Athens, this negotiation between power groups allowed citizens to have a say in decisions, leading to a form of direct democracy. It wasn't perfect. Mostly men participated, excluding slaves and foreign workers. But it marked a significant shift from ruling by the few to involving many. This system was revolutionary and influenced the way we think about governance even today.
Athens showed that change from within was possible, setting it apart from Sparta. While Sparta stuck with its regimented lifestyle to control the helots, Athens was a hub for innovation and culture. Festivals, new cults, and even theaters were introduced to keep the public engaged and avoid conflicts. It may not have been perfect, but Athens' model inspired other Greek cities and remains a cornerstone of modern political thought. Their story shows us the power of collaboration and compromise in building a thriving society.
As we dive deeper, the Greco-Persian Wars were pivotal for ancient Greece. It began with the Ionian cities that found themselves facing the vast Persian Empire. Herodotus, often called the father of history, provided detailed accounts of these wars, giving us insights into these dramatic years. The Ionian cities fought valiantly, but were ultimately overpowered, pulling Athens into the conflict as their ally. This marked the start of conflicts that would last for 2 decades.
Exactly. And the Greeks weren't just holding back the Persians, they were also innovating their military tactics. At the Battle of Marathon, the Greeks introduced the phalanx formation, which became legendary. It was a compact group of warriors, shields locked, spears ready, moving as one. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Greeks managed to drive back the Persian forces. It's said that only 192 Athenians were lost compared to thousands on the Persian side. This was a testament to both Greek resilience and tactical brilliance.
A major turning point was the battle at Thermopylae. Here, King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans took a defiant stand. They were supported by several thousand other Greeks and Helots, all holding their ground against overwhelming Persian numbers. The narrow coastal pass was ideal for the Spartans' defensive strategy. Despite eventually being outflanked due to a Greek's betrayal, the Spartans' resistance became a symbol of courage and sacrifice, embedding itself deeply into Greek and modern culture.
Right. Thermopylae showcased the Spartan spirit like no other. Their sacrifice allowed Greek forces to regroup and strategize, which was crucial for future battles. The battles during these wars displayed not just courage, but innovation as well, especially on the seas. This period laid the foundation for the kind of war strategies and defenses that would help protect and eventually promote classical Greek culture. The role of their seafaring abilities only became more crucial, as we'll explore in our next segment.
Continuing our deep dive into the fascinating history of Greece, let's explore one of the most significant developments, the naval advancements of Athens. It's hard to imagine ancient Greek might without considering their naval power. Athens realized early on that to protect themselves from threats like Persia, they needed command of the seas. The discovery of silver mines near Athens was a game changer. Instead of spending this treasure on luxuries, they invested it in building triremes, which were state-of-the-art warships.
These triremes were more than just ships. They were symbols of Athenian ingenuity and strategic foresight. They had 3 levels of oars and were designed for speed and agility. This gave Athens an edge in naval battles, allowing them to outmaneuver and overpower enemies on the sea. One of the most famous naval battles was at Salamis, where the Greek fleet, heavily influenced by Athens' naval prowess, managed to effectively destroy the Persian fleet. This victory was a crucial turning point, indicating the role that naval strategy could play in warfare.
The triumph at Salamis prevented Persia from dominating Greece and allowed Greek culture its survival and continuation. By turning the tide of the war, Athens showed the importance of sea control in protecting and spreading its culture. The triremes weren't just military tools. They helped protect trade routes and enhanced Greek prosperity. This naval advantage allowed Athens and other Greek city-states to defend the lands where their unique culture was emerging and thriving.
Absolutely. And this protection wasn't just about defense. It secured the seas for trade, ensuring that goods, ideas, and culture could flow freely. The Greeks' victories on the sea fostered a period where Greek art, philosophy, and science could grow without fear of domination. In many ways, the investment in naval power helped lay down the paths for what we now recognize as classical Greek culture, which would go on to influence the world in so many areas such as democracy, philosophy, and architecture. Absolutely, it has been an incredible journey. If you've enjoyed this exploration into ancient Greece, don't forget to like this podcast. Your comments and insights are also most welcome. It helps us bring more engaging content your way. And if you want even more, consider activating the join button on our YouTube channel for exclusive material, including full transcripts of our podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.